Okay, good video. All right, guys. All right, I was scrolling through my no, I wasn't. I was throwing through my YouTube recommended For You page. I don't know. I'm a TikToker. Former, just in case you guys didn't know, I used to be pretty big. And I saw this video. It's interesting. It's called Debunking Jordan Peterson's Transphobic Rant with Joe Rogan. So I'm simply interested in listening to what he has to say, guys, while we play the monkey game. Let's go.
YouTube as I usually do, and on my feed popped up this video of Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson titled "All Hell's Gonna Break Loose." I click it, and of course, the topic of their conversation is how trans people are, mutilating children, and all hell's gonna break loose, and all this kind of yada stuff. So I thought I watched this video, and as I'm watching it, Jordan Peterson is putting out so many obscene, angry, rage-filled factoids, and I'm thinking like, there's no way that all this stuff is true he's saying. So here's my project. I'm going to watch this highlight, and I'm going to fact check it throughout. All right. Take it away, Jordan Peterson, who, by the way, is looking quite fresh as Two-Face.
That is an interesting suit. I wonder why maybe he wore that suit to express the duplicity of mankind as one of our deep philosophical intellectuals of our generation. You don't know that.
This man really said, I'm going to look like...
No. Oh, no. I thought I'd get away with it. I can't get away with it. I can't do it. Okay, we got to do like this.
Today,
sorry. I'm going to turn myself down.
As a Batman villain today.
Turn myself down.
On the Joe Rogan Experience. What in God's name are you wearing, dude?
Looks snazzy to me.
You have something that marks you out from the norm, like a tilt towards autism, because a lot of the people... It was just released with the Tavistock staff. The Tavistock closed down in the UK. That was the big gender surgery performing institute in the UK.
How was that closed down? What happened?
Government closed it down.
So
because they knew that they figured out in the UK that, wow, the rates of transgender transformation requests were skyrocketing. And even the people at the clinic knew that they were rushing people along the transformation pipeline way faster than they should have without proper clinical evaluation.
That might be true. I don't know exactly what he's talking about, but like what it sounds like he's saying to me is that they didn't have the correct protocols for trans people there. Like that's an issue when it comes to the infrastructure. It is not an issue that when it comes to trans people. Like here's the thing. As a doctor, I was like somebody that's like a therapist for trans people. Your job is to first properly diagnose somebody with gender dysphoria, and we need to make sure. And that's something that I'm apprehensive about too. Oftentimes people will bring up the statistic that says if you just leave trans people alone, they will just go away, and that comes from like a really dumb study from a dated study that started in 1973 and ended in 2003 on gender identity disorder, which was historically overdiagnosed. And so, like, there is an issue when it comes to our mental health of overdiagnosing things sometimes. So I think it's reasonable to say, like, hey, listen, I want to make sure that when we diagnose somebody with gender dysphoria, it's just a proper. That's totally fair, right? But, like, you need to have the infrastructure to properly diagnose. And it sounds like Russia just didn't have that, so they shut it down, or they just hate trans people in Russia. It's one of those two things. I don't really know. Russia's, frankly, Russian people, great. The country, dog shit. Restrictions of freedoms, frankly, not a great place, probably. So, yeah, just wanted to bring that up.
There's 1,000 lawsuits out against the Tavistock in the UK now. 1,000.
So Tavistock is a clinic that specializes in helping children who are gender...
Is this in Russia?
...confused. It's the only one in all of England of its kind. And I believe this hospital or clinic has been, on the national stage as they've been under scrutiny, obviously, for treating... children, as you guys know, is very controversial. And the reason it was shut down after a report, the CAS review. So yeah, one of the biggest problems the report found was due to its lengthy waiting period, it was deemed unacceptable and frankly dangerous, right? Because if these kids have, having gender identity problems, it can be very dangerous for their mental health. And so their solution to that was to actually make 2 new clinics, right?
Okay,
so,
interesting.
There also was some reports of saying that...
Okay, so I don't know why I thought it was Russia. They mentioned Russia, so I thought it was from Russia. Oh my God, I'm trying to look at this myself too.
The care wasn't holistic enough, that the doctors weren't considering the other potentially mental health issues at play other than kind of gender confusion and stuff like that. Yeah, so there was a rise in referrals that led
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It didn't seem like they had the capacity to actually deal with these things properly. Okay. Sure. All right. So they're misinterpreting that, I'm assuming intentionally.
Led to the staff being overwhelmed and recommended the creation of a network of regional hubs to provide care and support to young people. Apparently, they weren't collecting enough data either, tracking the following welfare of these kids. But ultimately, I think the main issue here was that they were just not getting to enough people. I think the main issue here was that they were.
There seems to be an issue with the way that they like set things up and like the way that they like provide healthcare. They don't, like you said, it seems like they're not getting enough data, and they're not providing correct support. They're understaffed, which is a huge problem. Overwhelmed. They started in like 1989 as like a gender identity development service. So they might have some dated practices there. Let's see. The service was struggling to deal with this waiting list. It was not keeping routine and consistent data. Health staff felt pressured to adopt an unquestioning affirmative approach. Interesting. So health staff felt under pressure to adopt an unquestioning affirmative approach. We should make sure we mention that. So they might have been too affirming. That could be another issue as well. When patients are identified as having gender-related distress, other healthcare issues they had, such as being neurodivergent, can sometimes be overlooked. Okay. I wonder what that means. I think that they were talking about autism. My understanding, and I could be wrong, I remember hearing this before from a trans person that had autism. So maybe it could be wrong. Maybe I'm being too affirming of what they said. But apparently there is a higher likeliness of having the gender identity disorder if you also have autism, which is interesting about, I guess, the way that people with autism like perceive the world, and maybe, I don't know, that speaks to them in some capacity. I'm not a medical expert. I'm not a healthcare expert. At the end of the day, even if you have autism and it causes you to have a different outlook on life, you could just say it's a comorbidity, right? Maybe there's just a higher chance of having it because of the relationship that some people with autism have with the world. I don't really know. What I care about is operating in a way that produces positive outcomes. So, just because somebody might have a higher chance of having gender dysphoria because they're autistic doesn't suggest to me that you can't cure their fucking autism. What are you supposed to do? Oh, well, you have a higher chance of having it if you have autism. Oh, so we have to focus on the autism. Well, you can't cure autism. You just go through behavioral programs. There's no cure. As you're developing, it's a developmental disability. So as you're developing, you can try to curb the negative effects of autism, or you understand what I'm saying. Sorry if I'm not being sensitive enough. It is what it is. Right, what the fuck you want me to tell you? And I think that one of the problems is that some people are probably going to start looking and saying, well, if you see that people with autism have a higher chance of having gender dysphoria, well, that means that they're not focusing on the problem. The real problem is autism, and it's well, you can't cure it. It's just a thing that you work on from a behavioral perspective. And just because people with autism have a higher chance of having gender dysphoria, who cares? You know what I mean? That's what Jordan Peterson and Joe Rogan are trying to say when it comes to this.
Working through people too fast because there was so much demand. So ultimately, Jordan Peterson is trying to make it sound like it was Frankenstein's factory, where they're just chopping off body parts and sewing stuff together.
True, I do that.
The truth is that actually the result of this is that they're creating 2 clinics to create a more, effective hub for treatment. So it's
and sometimes some infrastructures are so fucked that it's not a bad idea to just start over, game over, restart. So I get it.
It's not really what you're saying at all. It's actually the opposite.
There's 1,000 lawsuits out against the Tavistock in the UK now. 1,000.
Wow.
Of course, 1,000 lawsuits seems almost comically insane, right? 1,000. I was trying to find any support for that. The only thing I could find is that there's a lawyer, Tom Goodhead, the chief executive of this, apparently some kind of, ambulance chasing lawyer here, said he expects at least 1,000 clients will join this action. So that's based on a lawyer.
Oh, so a class action lawsuit. There might be a class action lawsuit against it. Yeah, that's all it is. It's just 1,000 people. They expect 1,000 people. Yeah, I'm just saying what Ethan's saying. I'm just looking at it off my screen as well, just to be do it myself too. Damn. It's interesting because the type of transphobia that so far it seems that Jordan Peterson is engaging in, I don't think it's active transphobia. I don't think that Jordan Peterson is intentionally lying to people because it's so easy to fact check. You'd have to be a fucking moron to say stupid shit. I think that it's a case where Peterson has developed a distaste for trans people, and it has caused him to be lazy when it comes to his studying of it. He's so desperate to find to find a particular answer that he doesn't actually look for. He doesn't actually ask the question properly, right? And so it's like, trans people are bad. He said things along the lines that he thinks that there's like some kind of like a fucking conspiracy, the healthcare conspiracy to make more people trans for more money, which of course wouldn't be remedied by some form of universal healthcare that largely removes a financial incentive. And so it seems like he's like hearing like there's a lawsuit that might have 1,000 people, 1,000 lawsuits, right? There could be a link between autism and gender dysphoria. It's actually we have to cure autism. We can't. They don't actually have gender dysphoria. They have autism. We have to cure even though there's no actual cure for this, right? So it doesn't make any logical sense, especially since this should be like somewhat in the realm of his field of expertise. He should understand that when it comes to autism, like it's a behavioral thing, and there's only so much you could do. So just because there might be like a comorbidity there, doesn't mean that like we can't fucking cure autism. Like I don't understand. Okay, and I think that's what it comes from, and I think that it's probably more dangerous. I mean, it's almost more dangerous than grifting. Is when like you're so fucking diluted or diluted. Those are two different words. That like you can't even process information correctly and come to reasonable conclusions anymore. It's sad. Like his mental state has just completely fucking been decimated.
Doing a class action lawsuit, not 1,000 different lawsuits. And again, I don't know the real data on how many people have actually signed up for this, but that's literally just the lawyer kind of blowing hot smoke. So I like how
I mean, listen. There might be reasonable, like actual justifiable reasons to sue. It doesn't mean that the problem is that we have to be careful about associating the failures of of this hospital. I think it's a hospital, right? With trans people. Because I think that Jordan is trying to say because this hospital failed in some capacity, because it did, right? If they had to disband it and create two new ones, that means that he's trying to attach that to trans people to say it's a failure of the trans agenda or the trans narrative. And one thing I want to say is like if we go too far into saying like almost a language of like it is yeah there's nothing wrong with it. We have to like acknowledge like there's something wrong with the fucking hospital. That's the thing we do to question.
Jordan puts that forward. They're being sued by thousands. It's just one statement from an ambulance-chasing lawyer.
1,000 lawsuits out against the Tavistock in the UK now. 1,000.
Is it true to say that you're expecting around 1,000 former patients to join this class action?
Yes, I mean, it's hard to put a precise number on it now, but we run over 25 very large class actions from our firm, and we've got decades and decades of experience.
Now, I don't know.
Sure, there's nothing wrong with that.
I've worked with a lot of lawyers. I know they like to sit in front of bookshelves and stuff to look important. This man's just sitting in front of a whiskey bottle, so I respect that, man.
True.
Good for you, bro. He's got 3 bottles of alcohol right there. Hell no, dude. We ain't reading books. We just hitting the sauce.
In the size of
good head, more like drunk head. Okay.
So what is the difference between the way the UK is processing this versus the way we are?
Well, we're still where the UK was 3 or 4 years ago. We haven't woken up to the fact that, all hell's going to break loose on this front with people like Chloe Cole, launching lawsuits. That's the only...
Okay, so again, so now he mentions Chloe Cole, and this was an interesting one to look into. So Chloe Cole is a activist, an anti-transgender activist and detransitioner who's been going on tour of Fox News and these kinds of media outlets. So this girl is
interesting.
18
now I don't know who this. How old is they?
Years old, and transitioned as a young person. Chloe Cole is.
I wonder how much. Like, here's the thing. I would expect the detransitioner to be transphobic, because I would say that generally speaking, the healthcare system failed them and misdiagnosed them. Now, part of the reason they might have gotten misdiagnosed could have been because they faked symptoms. Okay, we have to be real. When it comes to mental health issues, it's easier to fake symptoms, and so it's an outlier. And I'm not saying that there's a ton of people, but some people, I wouldn't doubt, like, in order to fit in with their cool friends in school that actually have real issues, they're like, oh, I have it too. Oh, I have these experiences. Oh, and then they kind of fuck themselves. That's an outlier. It's not happening in any big capacity, I don't think. However, I'll just say that the healthcare system failed them and misdiagnosed them. I have a friend who's a detransitioner, and they were talking about how like they went in, they thought they had gender dysphoria, and the doctor was too affirming. And I'm sure that this happens, and it's something that we should talk about. That some doctors are fucking abysmal dog shit when it comes to this. Whether it's because they want to be over affirming and woke, or because they, they just want to be empathetic, and But that doesn't mean that like trans people are bad. It just means that like they have a bad relationship with being trans, right? So, that's a problem. And they might still have gender dysphoria. They just might be a different, like there's some people that have gender dysphoria. Their treatment method isn't to transition. So there are former trans kids who detransition after undergoing use of puberty blockers and an irreversible double mastectomy. What? At 15? Where did she get a double mastectomy? What the fuck? How did that just sounds like where? What? How? Damn. Is that real? I feel like that's illegal. I thought you couldn't get like a mastectomy until you were like... What? They also moved her nipples into a more masculine position. Bro, that part is like I'm on the fence about kids taking hormone blockers, but like you shouldn't be able to get any surgery until like you're at least 18. I feel. My question is did she get this done in California? Because no, it doesn't say it says she lived in California. I'm trying to find out if she actually got this procedure done in California. Because rich white girls, if she's a rich white girl and they decided to fly her to like the fucking Philippines or something, I don't know. I'm just curious. I'm just wondering where she got it done. Because I just feel like I feel like there's no, they actually let her get this done in California. Oh, she's from Ohio. Okay. Felt really isolated at school. I turned to the internet. She recited her life questionnaires following her friends at school. However, online she found a community. Well, that's okay. My dysphoria was definitely triggered by this online community. Never thought about my gender or had a problem with being a girl before I went on Tumblr. There might be a level of truth to that. Like there's like a level of truth to there's a level of truth to environment having an impact on like anything really. We talk about it all the time. Right? We just don't talk about when it comes to trans people for the most part. We know that people who grow up in racist areas have a higher chance of being racist, right? We know that people who grow up in more trans-affirming areas have like a higher chance of being able to express themselves properly, but there probably are spaces in general that might make people feel like they're trans when they're not, to be accepted in a community. That's not trans people's issue. That's more of a conversation about how some people are depressed and they will gravitate towards a community to feel accepted, even though it might hurt them in the long run. Which is again why we need to do a really good job of making sure we properly diagnose these issues. So okay.
And as a young person, Chloe Cole is a former trans kid who detransitioned after undergoing years of puberty blockers and an irreversible double mastectomy at age 15. Obviously, giving a double mastectomy at age 15 is pretty serious business.
Yes,
I would assume that there was some kind of threat of unaliving or something.
I just feel like 15. There's no way. I don't know, bro. Like that's crazy. Somebody should get sued for that. I don't know, man.
Warrant that level of intervention at that young of an age, but I just don't know, right? I don't know the story.
It does feel a little fishy.
What's interesting is I've been reading a lot about her and seeing her on Fox News talking to Tucker Carlson. If you go down to this Slate article, you can find out about Chloe Cole. They says there are detransitioned people whose stories have been presented that way by reporters, but the stories that go viral turn out to have been cleaned up, the untidy bits, where the detransitioned person explains they believe they experience gender dysphoria the same way other trans people do, and decided to detransition due to their newfound moral or ideological beliefs. This group includes Chloe Cole.
Okay, interesting. Well, I don't know that you could absolutely assert that. What they're saying right now is that these people do have gender dysphoria, but because they basically found God or something, that they reject themselves and hate themselves so much that it was a bad choice. I don't think that it's good to just write all this shit off as saying that. I think that there's probably people who legitimately go through transitions and end up like regretting it. She might have gender dysphoria. The doctor might have pushed a little too hard towards affirming that, where she needed to explore a little bit more. There's a conversation to have about the atmosphere that she was in. You know, I just wouldn't write it all off as like, no, she has it. She's just lying to herself and us. Like it seems like too easy of a cop out. Hey, what's going on, man? How you doing?
So it does add a little bit of an interesting film over it when you realize it's because they found God or something and fell in with the crowd that says, oh, you know, being trans is inherently evil. She's denounced,
or maybe she's like fell out of the crowd that was like overly affirming when it comes to it. Like again, trans people exist, but you know, there is a environmental factor to everything in our lives. So
gender affirming care at all, right? So she's against all trans care, it sounds like. She testified during a Florida bill that would deny Medicaid coverage for any form of gender affirming care for any trans people, right? So that's a little crazy, right? How are you going to advocate against all gender affirming treatment for any age? Like that's silly, right? It's okay, Jordan.
Only thing that's ever going to stop this.
Lawsuits,
absolutely. Yeah. Or jail sentences. So, like, it's absolutely appalling. This is part of the reason that I felt like I've been at war for like 6 months.
It's so crazy that what you're saying here, although it's backed by the literature, it's obvious you have an expertise in this area. That this is labeled as
and like I mentioned that before. He should have more of an understanding of these mental health issues. But let's be explicitly clear: he doesn't have an expertise when it comes to trans people. He has like a general expertise in like a more specific, like specified field. So I just want to be very clear. Like it's in his realm, but he does not have a specific expertise in this. Just being very clear. Okay.
It's transphobic.
I love Jordan Peterson's the
area. This is labeled as transphobic.
I love Jordan Peterson's the expert in trans issues. Well, the reason that someone might say is transphobic, in fact, I'd be willing to say that, it's either intentionally or ignorantly, negligently misleading. It's dishonest, right? And so wouldn't that be considered transphobic? But I defer to Jordan Peterson, the expert in trans issues.
Yeah,
this is a transphobic
Well, it's even worse than that, you know, because the data, and this was known, let's say 10 years ago before this all became an issue. Ken Zucker in Toronto, he was the world's leading authority on transgenderism. You know, he divided it into two parts. There's the autogynephilic types. Those are the guys who get sexual kicks from dressing up in women's clothing and then go do drag queen story hour.
That's not trans people. So just the fact that he thinks that, first of all, most people that do drag don't do it for sexual gratification, and they don't dress up to fucking read to kids. They don't jerk off to that. Are there some crazies? Sure, right? But you know, there's also bad people of any community. That's stupid. Okay, I doubt like nobody's going through a transition because it's a sexual fetish. If you think that, like, God bless you, but you are dumb as a fucking rock. Nobody's like, people dress up like girls to jerk off for sure. I jerk off to those people. They make porn. But like, that's not trans people, okay? Let's not pretend. That's just a stupid thing to say. Okay, it's just a fucking profoundly dumb thing to say. Let's not be that fucking stupid. So yeah, right off the bat, I'm thinking that maybe his expertise isn't really very good. If he thinks that people are going through whole ass fucking transitions, just so that they can get their pee-pee hard and jerk their little ding-dongs off. I don't really think that that's true. So
say, well, we're just, you know, pristine and pure. It's like, no, you're not. You're getting a sexual kick from dressing up in women's clothing. And let's not bloody well forget it.
That's not a trans person.
You can't even say that now, but
you get so angry, right? I find it so interesting. Like, I don't know that you're right there, Jordan. I think you're expressing an opinion. I mean, drag queen, I don't think is necessarily a sexual thing. I mean, if you type drag queen,
listen, drag historically has just been about like gay men dressing up like women, in a way where like they're usually like honoring or parodying in an honorable way, like popular musical artists. Now that music has become more sexualized, you're seeing the drag become a little more sexualized, of course. It's interesting that we don't care about like young girls watching overly sexualized content, but the second or dressing up like that, but the second that like it's a young boy, oh, we've got a problem, right? Nobody gave us a fuck about beauty pageants. They should. So like it just seems like nobody actually gives a fuck about this. Either way, I'm sure there are some people who are doing it for sexual pleasure. not most of them. And again, what you need to focus on more than that is that he's trying to say that those people are trans and they're not. That's the inherent transphobic nature of what he's saying. Those are just fucking people dressing up like girls to jerk off. Okay? There's nothing wrong with that, by the way. Okay?
Go to Google results. Google results.
Google results.
They're just fabulous, Jordan. And obviously being fabulous seems to somehow offend or scare you.
Clinical reality.
Fabulous.
Now it's become verboten to even suggest such a thing. Oh, there's nothing sexual about this. It's like, yeah, right. You're dressing up in lingerie before your mirror at home.
I think that the problem here is that Jordan likes to dress up in lingerie and jerk off, so he's projecting himself onto all people doing drag and calling them trans. So
tucking your dick between your legs, imagining you have a vagina for sexual kick. Oh, there's nothing sexual about that.
Holy
Dude, Jordan,
fuck.
you're way...
Dude, he goes on. Dude, he's in his old grandpa rant phase. Holy fuck. Jesus Christ.
too deep into this, bro. Oh, you're just sitting at home tucking your dick between your legs, imagining you've got a mangina. I used to do that as a young man. It terrified me. I'd wonder where'd my dick had gone.
Wow.
My wife walked in on me one time with a dick tucked between my legs. She said, "My God, man.
Okay.
What happened to your penis?"
This is happening right now.
Dude, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about at this point. You're just off the rails.
Documenting autogynephilia. A reality. Now it's become verboten to even suggest such a thing. Oh, there's nothing sexual about this. It's like, yeah, right. You're dressing up in lingerie before your mirror at home, tucking your dick between your legs, imagining you have a vagina for sexual kick. Oh, there was nothing.
Dude, that's awesome. I don't even know how to respond to that. I assume he's talking about drag people again, people who do drag.
Here, let me rewind that real quick.
My wife waiting you
because
Tucker in Toronto, he was the world's leading authority on transgenderism. You know, he divided it into two parts.
So we have to understand that he's not really talking about drag. He's trying to assert that drag queens are the same as people that are trans. Like, that's something that I think Ethan missed there.
Lingerie before your mirror, nothing.
Dude, that's awesome. Talking about drag people again, people who do drag.
Dragging these nuts.
I don't know if they tape their dick back, so to speak.
Some of them do, sure.
And pretend they have a vagina.
Tucking.
I don't know the details of that. But that's not necessarily a sexual thing, right?
Oh, I do.
Jordan can't conceive of that, though. So y'all are deviants.
Sexual about that.
Devious
Yeah,
like,
right.
baby.
Yeah,
Bloody
right.
Absolute liars.
Yeah,
Now,
right. I was fully turned on. Do you know how hard it is to tuck a boner back and pretend you have a vagina? It's horrifying.
It could be tough.
It's painful. I was turned on, by golly. My wife walked in on me.
By
my
golly.
fully torqued cock pointing right back at her.
Jesus Christ,
She
bro.
said, "My God, man, your penis is going the wrong way." Terrified her. But man, that was hot.
Oh, then you have the kids who don't fit in on the gender front. That's a different pathway. But with them, if you leave them alone, so do no harm, leave them alone. 90% of them accept their body, their sex, by age 18 or 19.
Now, listen. Okay, so my understanding. I don't know where he's getting this information from. Because I'm pretty, let's see, the controversial research on dissidents in transgender youth. Okay. Thanks. I don't want the backpack. The phenomenon of transgender children growing out of their trans identity by the time they are adolescents or adults is called dissidence by gender researchers. For decades, follow-up studies of transgender kids have shown that a substantial majority, anywhere from 65 to 94%, eventually cease to identify as transgender. Here's the problem that I have with this. You can't say this with absolute certainty. And the reason is because, like I said before, we had something called gender identity disorder that was drastically overdiagnosed. If you're saying decades of research, you're clearly referring to that. We changed it to gender dysphoria. Will there be people who grow up and grow out of their trans identity? Sure. I guarantee you that will happen once people, if they leave like a more... what do I say? They leave a more affirming space. But I don't think those are people with gender dysphoria. Those are probably young people experimenting with their gender in high school. That's it. Or maybe they're misdiagnosing themselves as having trans when maybe they have like a really huge issue. I mean, like, honestly, if I was a young girl, I'd probably be fucking non-binary too, because what is, like, nowadays, what is a young girl? It's an overly sexualized fucking figure. And I think that there's a lot of girls distancing themselves from that concept of that. And I could be wrong about that. And I think that the education around this topic is also a little bit off. I think that we teach people a little too much fear, instead of be careful, especially of predatory men. I think that we instill like a deep amount of fear out of wanting to protect them, but it causes them to like, oh my God, I want to distance myself from my gender. Now, maybe I'm wrong about that, but the reality is that like, it hasn't been long enough to actually make this assertion about gender, like about this. So to just say that 90% of people are going to just go away, I think it's ignorant. And I don't think it's very nuanced. These findings have become part and parcel of the how young is too young debate over social transitioning, the term for allowing kids to publicly live in their... I don't really care about social transitioning. Like, who gives a fuck about that? Do your thing. Social transition when you're 2. I don't care. Well, that might be a little young, but you get my point. Like, if you're 12 years old and you're just socially transitioning, there's literally... that is reversible. You're changing your clothes. It's not that big of a deal. Yeah, so this is just kind of... One reason... I'm just going to link this in the description of this video, but... many gender specialists now believe that the best course for a transgender child is often social transition, where kids as young as 3 are... Well, 3 is a little too young for me. Maybe when they get a little older, if they actually feel the need to. But one reason many researchers believe it's unnecessary to delay the social transition of a child is so that they don't think the research on distance is about. Okay, so this is all about social transitioning, which is like literally nothing. Like it has nothing to do with medical transitioning. It has nothing to do with hormonal transitioning. It's just social transitioning. So I really don't give too much of a fuck about this. Okay, but there you go. You got a little context. The data, we're not really complete on the data. He's not referencing a fact. He's referencing like a theory that is not actually like fully based in reality. So
this is an outrageous claim that I couldn't even find a single source to.
I found it pretty easily
to support. I mean, all the evidence really shows the exact opposite. Here's a New York Times article: few transgender children change their minds after 5 years. This article claims.
I don't know how old the kids are. 5 years. Either way, it doesn't matter.
They found that 2.5% of the group had reverted to identifying as the gender they were assigned at birth. So this is like an outright psychotic lie. 90%? That's insane. I don't even know what the fuck he's talking about. What is he referring to? This clip has 3.2 million views, and it really explains why. And it really explains why trans people are becoming, the biggest target of hate crimes.
And here, let's add something equally ugly to it.
Yeah, I'm ready for it, Jordan.
Since we haven't gone far enough
Put your
yet.
balls on it.
So here, we'll do a little bit of arithmetic.
All right.
So a while back, Disney executive mentioned on video, this is when Florida went after Disney, was all when this was happening. She came out and said, I think she was head of domestic programming for Disney.
Me too.
She said,
wow.
I have 2 children, 5 and 7. One is trans and the other is pansexual. And I just thought mathematically right away, it's like the chance you have a trans kid is 1 in 3,000. That's not a very high chance. And let's say the chance that you have a pansexual kid is the same, whatever pansexual means. I don't even know how to calculate those odds. But what
does pansexual even mean? By the way, I'm an expert in trans issues. What does pansexual even mean?
I mean, I don't know, it kind of would make sense to me in some capacity. Like if there's some kind of like a biological propensity to being LGBTQ, wouldn't it make sense that, like, if you're born gay, I guess you'd be born trans or pansexual too? I don't know. Who cares?
It's not that complicated. I mean, it's like, it just means you're attracted to people irregardless.
Well, I feel like a fucking 7-year-old isn't fucking pansexual. I feel like it's a little too young to be like, I'm fucking pansexual. Like, I don't know about that. You might be a little young to make that decision. I feel like it's a little bizarre. That part's a little weird to me. I feel like I fucked up even worse than usual on this.
Of gender.
Yeah, it means you're Japan's true.
Which actually, to be honest, the label's pretty open. It's probably not that rare when you think about kind of the broadness of that category. Hey, Alfredo. Hey, Shredder. What are the chances? What even is pansexual?
Whatever that is rarer than trans, because no one ever even heard about it until 5 years ago.
It's rarer than trans. It's like this super rare thing that nobody's ever heard of. Pansexual. What does it mean? You're a pan? What, am I going to fry an egg in you? My God.
Okay, that one kind of got me a chuckle. I was sitting here fucking cringing, but that part kind of got me. Oh my God. I fucking hate you. Can you stop parroting that nobody cares about beauty pageants? I mean, everyone cares. And the reason they don't at the second is because it's not popular or noticed at all properly. Okay. So I needed you to understand how stupid what you just said was. First of all, I'm not parroting. What I'm saying is that people do not care about beauty pageants. Nobody gives a fuck. Do people generally be like, that's kind of gross? Sure. And then people turn a blind eye, and then we have fucking TLC shows that glorify it. Okay? People don't care. That's when I say they don't care, I mean they don't actually give enough of a fuck to do anything about it. But people are melting down. When it comes to young girls getting overly sexualized, society doesn't really care. When it comes to young boys getting sexualized, though, I mean, we have a fucking trans grooming agenda that's literally destroying the entire world. The fact that you said the only reason it's not talked about is because it's not popular is literally means that they don't care. If something's not popular, it's not a popular topic, people don't care. What do you think popularity means? When you're a popular person, people care about you. When you're not popular, nobody cares about you. The thing that you said doesn't make sense in your own. I can't believe your fucking brain constructed what you just said. I'm sorry, I'm going goblin mode. You just said that people care about this, but it's not popular. Those two things, they can't go together. Those two things cannot fit in the same sentence. Something can't be cared about on one hand, but then also not popular. I'm not parroting anything. I'm telling you the objective truth that people don't really give a shit when little girls are put into disgusting tight dresses that show off their ass. But when it comes to exposing that stuff to little boys and having little boys do it, we have a fucking meltdown. If you're consistent, you'll think that both of them are not good. Both of them are not good. You shouldn't have fucking kids in drag. You shouldn't have kids in fucking tight outfits, okay? Ban beauty pageants, okay? And in some of the schools that have cheerleaders, make sure they're not wearing provocative clothing, because that's gross, okay? Stop coming in here just to be a fucking contrarian. I see you in the comments. You just disagree all the time on everything, okay? You're interested. Make your own channel. Make your own channel. Okay, use a VTube picture and double down and make a fucking video, okay? That's what you should do. All right? There you go.
It's rare. It's illness. My wife struck me with a pan once. I've never forgiven her. Now I hate the pansexuals. Reminds me of that horrible fight.
So the joint probability that you have a trans kid and a pansexual kid is 1 in 9 million.
1 in 9 trillion.
Damn.
The chances of having a pansexual and trans child is 1 in 900 trillion. Do the numbers on that, bucko.
Well, I want to
The
see where
odds
he's going
that you're
with this
a
argument.
pathological narcissist sacrificing your own children to the
Pathological
glorification of your compassion
narcissist.
is 8,999,999 to 1.
You know, it's also possible that your kid just comes home one day and goes, I'm pansexual, and they're like fucking 3, and you're like, okay. Because that's how I'd be like, okay, whatever. Like, I don't care. Because you're like, you don't even know what that word means. You're fucking 5 years old. You're an idiot. I would just not care. You know what I mean? I'd be like, okay, cool. Like, you, whatever, dude. And then they probably would grow out of it, or maybe they wouldn't. I don't know. Who cares? Like, you know, I feel like, you know, just keep that in mind.
So, like, do you have a trans kid and a pansexual kid, or are you a devouring mother?
Oh,
by the way, so I looked into this
mother.
because it sounded a little far-fetched, right? And what I found was it was hard to find anything about this that wasn't on like explicitly underground conservative publications.
Okay.
It was some kind of scandal. Let's see. Disney executive who's the mother of a trans and pansexual child says she wants at least half of all future characters to be LGBTQ.
That seems a little much. Half of all future characters.
Or racial minorities. I did not.
Oh, or racial minorities. I mean, okay. So either gay, trans, or anything but white. I mean, like that, I don't care. But I feel like in the United States, the population, it's like 60% white. All right. And like, what's LGBTQ? Let's say it's 5%. That's about half are either not white or trans or gay or whatever, you know, fucking thing. So like, that makes sense. That actually makes up, like, from the data. Yeah, I want to make 50% of all the Disney characters either Black, Hispanic, Asian in some capacity, gay or bisexual or transgender or fucking blah 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 blah. Like I would like the new characters we make to statistically fall in line with the demographic of the United States. You can't do that. Okay, you're not allowed to do that. Like, fucking cares, bro. Okay.
Find any receipts for that. Theme parks banned from saying hello, boys and girls. I did not find any receipts for that.
Okay.
They referenced this Disney site called Reimagine Tomorrow, which I guess is kind of about what they're doing to better represent diversity throughout their IPs. Here it says, at Disney, Inclusions for Everyone Reimagined Tomorrow is our way of amplifying unrepresented voices and untold stories, as well as championing the importance of accurate representation in media and entertainment. Here, let's read their intentions, okay? Because they reference this website.
Okay, I'm ready.
The more our customers worldwide are reflected in our workforce, the better we're able to serve them authentically. When our employees perceive that Disney culture supports their professional development and advancement, they can be authentic, contribute freely, and take pride in our company.
Pride is a sin.
Here,
Come on, you can do it.
We are committed to inspiring a more inclusive world by reimagining the way we tell stories and who tells them. Our intention is to broaden access and diversity to our industry by adopting inclusion standards across Disney, general entertainment, and live-action studio productions by the end of 2022, with the goal of advancing representation in front of and behind the camera in marketing and more. That's all it says.
You know what? Maybe
they also say they're making a $100 million donation, serving underrepresented communities. We are ensuring that we direct more than 50% of our annual charitable givings to programs serving underrepresented communities. This is the only reference to 50% I could find, which is them saying they want to donate. But as far as some kind of checklist that all
we'll do that.
Characters must be
buff the fuck
diverse or trans.
Okay.
They don't even mention trans here. It's about more like
buff the fuck
racial diversity and, I mean, yeah, sexual diversity too, but
let's see how this
they're
goes.
Really inventing something. This is craziness. So here's the videos that got leaked. This seems like some kind of Project Veritas
I don't think that's
hit job thing, but let's take a look at the video.
I'm here as a mother of two queer children, actually, one transgender child and one pansexual child.
The odds of that are insane, astronomical.
That's a little
You're
weird.
far more likely a devouring mom, like in Hansel and Gretel. The witch, she wants to eat the kids literally. That's you. Just own it.
It's true. We have many.
You know, this conversation goes on, and I think it's the stat that really.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, like it's something. I don't know. It's a little bizarre to me.
It's impossible.
Who am I? Am I right?
To have two queer children. There's no report of that ever happening in the history of humankind. And then this one, I think, really riled them up. She says she has a not at all secret gay agenda, which they perceived as a secret gay agenda. Let's take a look.
It's like I love Disney's content. I grew up watching, you know, all of the classics. They have been a huge, like, informative part of my life. But at the same time, like, I worked at small studios most of my career, and I'd heard, you know, you hear whispers. Like, I'd heard things like, oh, you know, they won't let you show this at a Disney show. And I'm like, okay. So I was a little, like, sus when I started. But then my experience was bafflingly the opposite of what I had heard. On my little pocket of, like, you know, Proud Family Disney TVA, the showrunners were super welcoming. Meredith Roberts and like our leadership over there has been so welcoming to like my like not at all secret gay agenda. And so like I feel
she said not at all secret gay agenda.
Yeah, I remember people melted down about this.
It's a big secret. It's funny. She's like, yeah, I'm openly advocating for more gay representation in Disney shows. It's a secret agenda. I mean, it's probably her job, right? To do that.
Has been so.
So there's this, you know. Apparently, this was like a big culture war scoop in the conservative world.
You can look at the odds and decide for yourself.
Jesus.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Jesus.
yeah. No kidding. Look, man, Freud was no dummy. When he pointed to the fact that the devouring...
From here, he just goes so off the rails, dude. It's wild.
Mother was one of the major impediments to proper human development. He knew that, looking deep into the darkest families and seeing this proclivity of the overprotective mother to destroy the developing...
No, he did the mother meme. Okay, so the overprotective mother meme is something that we have to talk about a little bit, because like there is a level of truth to being like a mama's boy, right? A mother being too overprotective is obviously gonna, you know, I always say that, like, you know, if you don't have a masculine and a feminine figure, things are gonna go out of control. The problem is that like there are people who, and I don't know if Jordan's going here, but I feel like he might be. There are people who have Harry Potter wands, abracadabra. I don't know. I'm just touching something. Okay, it's my autism. That's why I'm trans. I'm just kidding. There are people who will say that the reason that boys become gay, and I'm assuming you could latch trans onto there as well at this point, is because their mothers are too overprotective and they're too close to that kids, and that feminizes the kid. However, what you should understand too is that boys are probably, or people are probably born gay. There's like apparently there's like a statistic that like for every a successive man that you have, like so if you have like 4 boys, that each boy has a higher chance of being gay. There's some kind of like I think there's like a nature setting thing. It's actually very interesting. You should look into it. But it's not unlikely to think that whether it's genetic or whether it's some kind of like hormone washing in the womb, the kid comes out gay and they just are more feminine, so they latch onto their mother more. So it's just something to bring up, just to kind of think about it. So think about it's a factor. Okay.
He said that the odds of having a devouring mother who wants to sacrifice her kids to show how compassionate she is 1 in 9 million. But at the same time, it was such a powerful archetype. Freud talked about it, and it was in the fairy tales. Everybody knew about this 1 in 9
You're the only child with
million
gay? Wow.
diagnosis. Toxic femininity.
So Let me try this again.
Integrity of the child,
I think I could do
to
this.
keep
I think I
the
got
child
this.
infantile, to cling to that
Okay,
relationship
okay,
instead of
okay.
developing a life for herself and
I
letting
got
the
this.
child go
I got
flourish.
this.
That's Hansel and Gretel. Right?
Damn.
You're lost in the woods. Why? Well, you're
This is a weird analogy because he's saying there's parents that don't want their kids to grow up. I think that's an emotion that's pretty like common that a lot of parents can relate to, and I don't think I think people can be pathological with it, but I think as it's probably occurred to most people, like, oh, I just wish I could freeze you in time. You're so perfect the way you are right now. But ultimately,
I think it's moms are gay.
what the
That's
fuck
it
does that
is.
have to do with having a trans or pansexual
are
child? Like,
gay?
what are you even talking about?
your family's broken up. You have an evil stepmother. So now you're lost in the woods. What's your
But he's
abuse
right.
rate if you have a step parent? 100 times normal. So you're lost in the woods.
What?
Your abuse rate if you have a step parent?
What? What? Is he saying that you're 100 times more likely to get abused if you have a step parent? There's no way that that's true. 100 times? Okay. Okay, results in 2009 studies showed that families living with a man who was not the biological father of all the children in the home and families living without a man in the home were significantly more likely to be contacted by CPS compared to families in where the biological father of all the children live with the mother. That's huge. That's taking a group of people who, Jesus Christ, that study. This is a relevant study to me. It's literally like these are the people that are covered in the higher abuse homes. There might be there might be 5 kids and one of the kids isn't one of the father's kid, or there's no father at all, or like there's too much there. It's not saying that like added into this is also. It's not just saying like, oh, there's a stepfather. They're not even saying that they're stepfathers. It's just a man in the home. That doesn't make a stepfather. Wait, his study is fucking garbage. What else is there? This is adding in like not having a dad at all, plus just having a boyfriend living with you, plus just having like one of your baby daddies living with you when you might have like 2 and then some of the kids aren't his, versus like unbroken family units, and it's a higher chance of CPS being called. That's not the same thing as saying that like a step parent. Being a step parent is much bigger than just being a father in the house. I would have to see where he's getting his data from because he's just a fucking idiot.
100 times normal. So you're lost in the woods.
Not true.
Well,
What
what
the fuck
happens?
are you talking about?
You come across a gingerbread house.
Oh.
That's pretty damn convenient.
Dude, this is like a bit. You come across a gingerbread house. Oh, that's pretty convenient. The odds of being abused by a step parent is 1,000 times higher. Then all of a sudden, your house is made of gingerbread.
You need a house,
right?
This is what happens usually.
It's more than you could even hope for. It's not just a house.
Oh,
it's a house made out of candy.
It's a house made
well,
out of
what's
candy.
inside a house made out of candy?
What's inside
a witch who wants to fatten you up and eat
She wants to eat you.
And that's the devouring mother.
And that's why it's impossible to have a trans and pans child, Joe.
That's an old fairy tale. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, and so, we could dwell on that for a minute, too. One of the things we won't honestly discuss in our society, one of many, is the fundamental nature of female political psychopathology.
Like, I really wish that Joe... Oh, dude, this is why people think Joe Rogan's a fucking idiot. because like he's not pushing like, oh, where'd you get that study from? 1,000 times more, 100 times more likely. Where did you get that from? Oh, I read it in a book. Like what? Can you give me like an example? Like what the fuck are you on about, man? Like that's a bold claim.
You know, and there's male political psychopathology.
These women be crazy.
True.
These women be shopping.
That's true.
We've talked enough about male.
Women do go to Target a lot. They love it so much. I had a fan reach out to me and said that he took his girlfriend to Target for Valentine's Day, and he's like, I don't know what to do. I'm running out of money. Oh, actually, I might actually win this. Holy fuck.
Toxic masculinity. What we haven't talked about enough is these goddamn women be shopping.
Oh, this is gonna be bad. This is gonna be bad, guys.
Complain about all the time when they talk about the oppressive patriarchy, toxic masculinity.
Don't do it.
There's no shortage of toxic masculinity. So is there any toxic femininity? Well, not if the feminine is just the oppressed virgin goddess whose nature. But how about we don't live in that fantasy world? And we know, there's female political pathology, the tendency to infantilize everyone, and the tendency to assume that everyone who doesn't go along with the infantilization.
I don't even know what the fuck he's talking about. Like I don't really know anybody like that.
I don't really know what the fuck he's talking about either, if I'm being real. I mean, like when he's talking about, I don't know. I guess he's saying that like women being too attached to their kids is creating a weak society. He's kind of just ranting at this point, honestly.
And I don't even know how it relates to this Disney executive who says her kids are trans and pansexual. What does that have to do with infantilizing them? Makes no sense. What are you on about, Jordan? Did you have some apple cider this morning, man? Quick, take a Xanax. He's spiraling.
And the tendency to assume that everyone who doesn't go along with the infantilization is properly characterized as...
I like how he's like, toxic, he cries. Toxic masculinity, what a horrible word. And then next day he's like, let's talk about toxic females. They're trying to infantile everybody. And the ginger house is made of candy. And you know what's in the gingerbread house? A witch. And she wants to eat you. It's fucking psychobabble.
As a predator. And so, you wonder why are the universities turning into extended daycares? Well, a lot of the reason for that is that women who don't have anything better to do are turning the university students into the infants they never had.
What the fuck are you?
Oh, he's saying that. Okay, now I understand what Jordan is saying. What Jordan is saying is that women are baby-making machines, and by them trying to generate respectful careers in academia, what they're actually doing is turning away from their true calling of just being baby makers. And because of that, they're going into universities, and because they don't have a child, they feel like they're missing out on the having of the child. So they're trying to make all their students children and treat them with too much empathy or something. That's what he's trying to say there. How fucking incredible. Wow. Okay. Interesting.
About, bro. Yeah, so this was apparently a super interesting high-level conversation. The comments obviously hate him. They think he's a genius. We have to protect the kids.
Okay.
This is gold. 1, 2, 3, so spot 4, 5, on.
6, 7, 8.
You know. We're good. So this is why people hate trans people. This is the biggest podcast in the world. 10 million views per episode. This clip alone has 3.2 million views. This is why people hate trans people. This is it right here. They say I'm transphobic. Never mind me taking right-wing conservative propaganda talking points. What's transphobic about that? And misrepresenting facts. I think Jordan Peterson knows that this trans thing is just his meal ticket, right? That's how he became famous with the, I will not say your pronouns no matter what.
I think that I don't think that he's like grifting, as Ethan's trying to assert. I think that like Jordan is like just genuinely gone down like a fucking transphobic rabbit hole. And the problem is that okay, we can get really deep into one of the problems. The problem is the only people left that will platform Jordan Peterson are people like Joe Rogan. Jordan's still a smart person, but nobody else will talk to him or platform him. And I understand that, but this gets into it. I think that Ethan could have possibly helped negate this. Not his responsibility to do so. Of course, it's a large responsibility. But I do think that it wasn't a very smart idea to just simply cut the guy off. I think that you could have talked to him, and maybe you could have had like a positive impact in that way. Again, you're not forced to do any of this, of course. But I'm just saying, I do think that would have been a good thing to do. So
that's what made him famous. And now, you know, he went down the self-help route, which was pretty good for him. But the trans thing, right? Hating trans people is where his bread and butter is. This is, you know, at his core, what he's all about. So it's a return to a tradition as he loves. Anyway, I don't know. Just a little something I put together. So
okay, that's pretty cool.
Watch out for that gingerbread house in the forest.
Was
made of candy, but there's a witch inside.
Watch.
She's the devouring female.
Okay.
And I put my dick between my legs, pretended I had a vagina. My God.
All right. Interesting.
I want Papa Gut to pee on my face, but just as a friend. There's nothing weird about that. I want him to pee on my face.